Welcome back to Coast to Coast. My name's Jeremy. This is Ed. We're going to go over today about just free agency, some moves we like, some moves we don't, who got better, who got worse. We're just pretty much going to yap for an extended period of time, and we really hope you enjoy our yapping. So to begin, what's one of your favorite moves this free agency, Ed?
Yeah.
Who do you think got not better or worse or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, no. Happy to be back at it with you to yap again. Um so a couple of teams that I liked that made some decent moves. I mean, Chicago was the one that got out to it right away, obviously. They were kind of the talk of at least day 1, day 2. They came right out of the gates, addressed the offensive line, which obviously is incredibly important across the league, but more importantly to Caleb Williams being such a fresh face and such an important pace to them with Ben Johnson going in. I think that was huge for them to bring in Jackson, Tooney, and Dahlman all kind of in one fell swoop.
I couldn't agree more, dude. And honestly, I think the best part is, which I know you're most likely going to agree with, is that it really opens up their ability to draft the best player available, right?
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
if it's like Tyler Warren, like Smythe and why am I forgetting his name? He's a very, very, very good tight end. Shit, I gotta look that up real quick.
We're talking with Chicago,
Sorry. Yes,
Komet,
Chicago. Komet.
Cole Komet, yeah.
Yeah. Forgive me, everybody. My brain isn't functioning at full capacity right now.
Can't
Yeah,
remember. You
like Smythe and
can't keep them all in
sorry,
there,
I know. Too many names to keep track of. But Smythe and Komet aren't going to keep me away from drafting Tyler Warren.
right?
And then obviously you could upgrade at the running back position.
Yes.
You could get crazy and draft another wide receiver, though I'd probably go defense this draft if that was the case, because
Right.
I mean, they're pretty stacked, as far as that goes. And yeah, I completely agree. I think
Yeah.
Chicago and those offensive line moves, because their tackles are solid, right? And a lot
Yeah.
of the time last year when you'd watch them, the interior was the issue.
Right.
From what I saw, not that Braxton Jones and
Darnell
not that
Wright.
not that yeah, not that Darnell Wright, not that their tackles were elite by any stretch of the imagination, but getting Thuney, Dahlman, and Jackson. I mean, shit, I
Yeah.
was listening to a podcast today about Jackson and Jesus Christ. Les Snead was saying how
Okay.
Jonah Jackson actually was bummed that he got injured and he felt bad and he felt like he was stealing from the Rams because he was essentially a backup on scout team and all that type of stuff. And
Okay.
that's the kind of guy you want on your team,
Yeah.
And obviously that what they've been doing is great, but yeah, I mean,
Right.
floor is yours. Can continue with
Yeah, no,
if you want to add
like you had
anything.
brought
And
up, I think that's when they attacked a position like that, not only in free agency but also in trade. I think, like you said already, it gives them that opportunity to just draft best player available. Nobody's off the table at that point. They can just literally draft the best guy on their board and improve the team as a whole. Because now, like you said, the defense is already pretty good from front to back. They obviously can improve at multiple positions, but they've got those players at each level on defense, on offense. They've got two quality wide receivers. They've got DeAndre Swift at running back, like we already brought up. They've got Caleb Williams. The line is obviously very good, and they've got Cole Komet. So it's not like they have a glaring hole, but
100%.
that puts them in that position where they can just add those players. If they want to draft an Ashton Genty, they can draft an Ashton Genty and just dump him in there and just have, have Ben Johnson have a very similar situation to like what he had in Detroit, where he has a two-headed monster back there and does, whatever he wants with that backfield and improve Williams' situation just like it improved Jared Goff's situation. Um, and if they want to draft another, offensive lineman, they could draft an offensive lineman. They could take a tackle and bump, Braxton Jones or Darnell Wright if they get beat out in camp, because neither one of them are, like you said, neither one of them are anchors. They're not
Yeah.
they're not
Ronnie Stanley,
yeah, they're not Ronnie Stanley, they're not, Andrew Thomas, they're
Trent
not any of those,
Williams.
yeah, Trent Williams.
Yeah.
They're not one of those guys. Even with the capital that, I think Darnell Wright was a first round pick or maybe a high
Yeah. Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
So even though they used that draft capital, it's not a bookend tackle that they're paying a lot of money to even either. So I think they're in a really good spot. A, because they improved the head coaching position, which was glaringly awful last year. So they improved the head coach. They improved the team as a whole by strengthening that offensive line.
I mean,
And I mean, like you had already said, it's just one of those situations where they can just sit down on draft night, not stress about having to reach or go after specific players. They can just let the draft fall to them and take advantage of some other desperate teams that are, overreaching on certain players, and then these other good players fall to them. Just like, I mean, Detroit had that happen with them a lot, where they were in a good spot. Their roster kept improving because they were doing a good job building the roster, and then stuff falls to them. The Eagles had the same thing. Everybody brings up the Eagles
100%.
model, and
Jalen Carter.
a lot of that is also, yeah, a lot of that is also just like because Howie does such a good job building a roster and filling those holes and finding those guys deeper into the draft that are good quality players. He's not overthinking it and overreaching on certain players. He's letting the draft really drop to him. And I think the Bears, with a guy like Poles, who is a quality GM, can just let the draft fall to him and stick to the board and really improve that team.
Yeah, it would be quite ironic if they drafted like Membu or something at 10, because Wright was you were right, it
Right.
was the first round pick, drafted him number
Yeah.
10. Because really, I don't know, like the tackles kind of scare me in this class, but that'll be on our episode next week.
Yeah.
Teaser.
I agree with you. I
Um,
don't think there's really any tackles in the first round that you would take to replace any of them, but who knows how their board is.
yeah, 100%. But yeah, I mean, Mike Green would be great with Sweat. You know what
Yep.
I mean? Obviously, that the Connerly bull rush, though. Let's all calm down because Josh Connerly was playing right tackle for the first time ever.
Right.
And anyone who thinks that playing right tackle and left tackle are very like fluid, uh, like I hate the you don't know ball thing, but it's some of the greatest left tackles of all time couldn't play right tackle,
Yeah.
and vice versa. Like
Right.
some people can switch fluidly, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's so yeah. Just to piggyback on what you said, and honestly, like when you look at the good teams, when you look at the great teams, like you brought up the Eagles, like you draft good players, right? You
Right.
brought up the Lions. Everyone was freaking out about, oh my God, they selected Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round
Right.
at what, 12?
Yeah.
Oh my God, they Jack Campbell at
Jack Campbell,
20,
yeah.
whatever. Oh no, Brian Branch. How are you going to draft a safety at the top of the second round? Oh well, let's look back on that draft. Jahmyr Gibbs is I mean, you could argue top 5 running back.
Yeah.
He's one of the most electric running backs in the entire NFL,
Yeah.
right? And then Jack Campbell was a day one starter. Yeah, he had his lumps early, but he's solidified himself as a starter.
Right.
And then Brian Branch is one of the best nickel safety, that hybrid position in the entire NFL that isn't named Kyle Hamilton and obviously Teron Johnson from Buffalo.
Yeah.
For everyone who forgot, I'm a huge Ravens fan, so I try to bring them up as much as possible. But yeah, I just think, and I think that Ben Johnson, because last year with the Bears, it was scary. I don't know. Being in the NFC North, I think Belichick even said something along the lines of that. It's like, what are you doing with the offensive line?
Right.
And that is what kind of, I don't know. We're going back to, I know you and I have talked about this before, and it's like, we're going back to a time of possession, run game, good defense. Like you want to keep the explosive plays. Like, yeah, everyone loves them, obviously, because you want to score quickly, but or you just want to score. But I think the NFL is really transitioning to not newer because it's cyclical, but like the newer, which is obviously for me concerning with the Bengals. And I mean, yeah, the Bengals are scary offensively because they have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow,
Right.
the best trio in the league.
Yep.
Joe Burrow's an elite quarterback. He's top four in
Hmm.
my opinion.
Yep.
Lamar, no, in no particular order, so don't get your panties in a bunch, everybody. Lamar, Allen, Mahomes, Burrow. That's the standard in the NFL right now.
Yep.
Um, you can argue a wall. But their line isn't as good. And then, I mean, the Texans really scare me with what they're doing. And I know they're changing some stuff, but
Mm.
CJ Stroud was one of the most pressured quarterbacks in the NFL last year.
Yep.
He was almost on pace to break David Carr's sack record, him and Caleb both. So
Yeah.
obviously
Both on
this
par.
offseason, yeah, the Bears were like, and Ben Johnson were like, hey, let's fix that. Getting rid of Tunsil's scary, man.
Yeah.
And they've
Yeah.
upgraded their defense. Their defense is, CJGJ is a great rotational piece in that defense,
Yep.
especially when Petrie is able to return. Stingley's probably the best pure cover corner in the NFL outside of maybe Pat Surtain.
Yeah. Who they just locked up too.
100%. And that's, I mean, 30 mil for that. Who knows what corners are going to get,
Yeah. It's only going to go up from here.
But yeah, I mean, we can talk a little bit more when we talk about obviously teams. I know I just yapped a little bit about it, but what I don't necessarily like. But yeah, again, everything that you said, I think the Bears are going to be much better. I know Caleb's never. We've talked about this before. I know Caleb's never had the opportunity to not have to play hero ball.
Right.
So I'm very curious to see how he handles having a top 3 offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Right.
And you could argue the only person better is Andy Reid. And then, yeah, obviously a good run game, offensive line, all that type of stuff. I think one of my favorite, not sneaky, but I really like what Washington's been doing.
Yeah, agreed.
Like getting Tunsil, right? They saw what the issue was with Daniels. He didn't have much time. He was kind of running for his life.
Yeah.
He was, I mean, shit, he might be in that top 4 that I'm talking about. Not that anyone's going to bounce, but
right.
He might be in that argument.
Yeah. Especially with the early
obviously,
success.
Yeah. I mean, you just watch the kid, like they played the Ravens last year. I watched the Bengals game. I mean, shit, even the Eagles game in the playoffs wasn't his fault.
No,
he was going toe to toe with them, but
absolutely
some guys kind of, Tunsil just re-signing some of their offensive line, solidifying that left tackle spot, and then their D line. Like I know they let Allen walk, but like Eddie Goldman's a solid rotational piece. Javon Kinlaw's great. Sheldon Day. I mean, they have the run. You know what I mean? And then obviously Wagner, getting him back. I don't know how he continues to play at such a high level, but it's unbelievable.
He's just one of those guys.
Honestly. Yeah, I mean, I guess with linebacker, like Ray did it, it's kind of one of those cerebral positions to where once you lose that, but yeah, man, I mean, I really like what they're doing. Who knows what they're going to draft, right?
Yeah.
Like they kind of freed themselves up to do the same. And then where are they in the draft?
They are, Washington is sitting at 29.
Oh, that's right.
Because that deep playoff run.
Yeah. So, I mean, who was it? Some scout was like 15 to 34 is like the same. It's like, all right, or 15 to 55 or whatever, it is the same. So I'm sure they'll still get, because they picked Sammer still was a dog.
Yeah.
I know he did let up some yards and a couple touchdowns. Not a couple, but he's a rookie. He was a dog. Like their rookie class.
All in all, he was elite.
Yeah. So, is there anyone else, or
I think the other thing with Washington bringing in Debo, I think is going to be huge too. Just getting Daniels another weapon. I know he obviously had a down year, and there's all the rumors with the weight issues, but I think either way, just getting him out of San Francisco is is huge for him. It's going to be huge for Washington. Having him and McLaurin um, on the outside for Daniels is going to be such a. It's just it's huge. I mean McLaurin had I don't want to say a breakout year, but he definitely um, cemented himself as a number one there, and adding Debo as kind of an inside out number two. Um, that's only going to be good things for Daniels, and then adding a left tackle to support that is going to be obviously you know another big bonus for him as well.
No, definitely. I obviously I'm forgetting the name of this guy naturally. Um who was the wide receiver that they drafted when Kingsbury was there that essentially was supposed to be in that Debo mold? Let me look that up real
We're
quick.
talking about Dotson, give him number two
Not
spot.
Dotson. No. No, not in Washington. When Kingsbury was the head coach in Arizona.
Oh, we're
Arizona.
talking about Rondale Moore.
Yes.
Got it.
Debo is essentially because when you looked at what they did, that's kind of how they used Rondell Moore, from
Right.
my understanding, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And obviously, Debo was actually successful at that. And honestly, to something wasn't right in San Fran last year. I don't
Oh,
know what it
absolutely
was. Like
not.
obviously, that all the injuries and stuff like that, but like you had a Ayuk chirping at the beginning of the year. You have um, you have Debo unhappy with his usage and all that type of stuff, and like maybe he was James Hardening it, right? Like
Right.
he did
Yeah.
look
Who knows?
a little thicker than usual, but I'm really excited to essentially why I brought that up is I'm really excited to see how Kingsbury uses it because I
Yeah.
think he's
True.
a very like obviously he flamed out pretty bad in Arizona and ran right back to college for a little bit, took a
Yeah.
break, did all his he did his stuff. He was making his tens of millions of dollars
Yeah.
with those guaranteed contracts coaches get. But I'm actually really excited to see how he utilizes it because then I feel like that's
Yeah.
really, forgive me if I'm repeating you, it's really going to open up McLaurin. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? On the deep shots and all that type of stuff, and even over the middle, like just that. And then I wouldn't mind them. I don't know, like getting Travion Henderson or
Yeah.
like not that Brian Robinson isn't good and not that they don't have like a nice stable of running backs, but
Right.
I don't know, you can always with this draft it's like you can always upgrade a little bit, you can always upgrade kind of the running back position.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I mean,
Yeah. It's not like Brian
completely agree,
Robinson's a
Debo.
bell cow in any way, shape, or form. So um,
Yeah,
you can definitely because like we talked about with Chicago, they could easily do the same kind of approach where they're just drafting best player available because of all the guys that they brought back, like you said, and then
yeah,
the couple of moves that they did make. Obviously adding a one of the best left tackles in the league, especially pressure wise. Um, adding somebody like that to a new spot. Once again, he's another one that who knows what rumors are true or not. There's all this stuff that they're saying. He may or may not be a cancer in the locker room. Who knows if that's true or not? But on the field, he's
yeah,
still one of the best left tackles in the league. So at the very least, they're getting that on the field, hopefully, because even last year when they were saying he was, kind of dragging them down, his the percentage of pressure was in the top five for tackles in general. So I mean, just the sheer
yeah,
fact that he's still performing at that high a level, if he's also
yeah,
being an issue of some kind, obviously he's going to be an improvement there. So they could easily just improve that team in a multitude of different ways with the picks they have. And like you said, well, I think people are making it sound like a negative, but I think it's a positive. Is that the back half of the first, well into the second? I think it's all that there's so many quality players that I don't think
yeah,
as much of a negative as people are trying to make it sound. I think yes, there aren't as many high value elite prospects at the top end
yeah,
of the draft, but there's still a ton of more than capable starting quality players that are going to be going well into the third round.
Just PSA for everybody watching, all three people. Two of us, two of them being me and Ed.
Yeah.
Drafting is really fucking hard.
Yeah.
And the hit rate on draft picks, regardless of where they're at, is like a 50% chance.
Right.
So let's pump the brakes on the immediate busts, all this type of
Right.
stuff. It's fine if you draft someone at 28 and
Yeah.
it takes them a couple years to get going.
Yeah.
Because
Agreed.
that's the time frame that they're on. Washington's not. I mean, shit, they kind of are more or less now going to be competing for a Super Bowl,
Right.
but like, no one's going to be like, oh, they didn't do it this year. They did it last year. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, as long as they don't end up doing what y'all did and making a little run and then going back to 3 and whatever
Right.
it was. And by y'all, I mean the Giants. Sorry, not
Yeah.
turning to take shots.
Sorry.
I just another thing too is I assume that Marshawn Lattimore is going to be, because I was like, ooh, their secondary is kind of thin. But I forgot that they traded for Marshawn Lattimore towards the end of the year. And like, yeah, he had a hamstring, but I can almost. New Orleans is great. You know, the Peyton years were awesome. They were an amazing team and all that type of stuff. I know. I know. But at the end of the day, like, it's hard to care when you're on. It just seems like it's very difficult to care when you're on bad teams.
Yeah.
And when you're stuck on a bad team, right?
Yeah.
Like, and he had the end of the Breeze years, right? He had the PI heard around the world where the Rams got super lucky and won that was the NFC Championship game or the divisional round, regardless of
Minnesota.
With no, it was actually that too. Yeah. No, the 100% Stephon Diggs, boom. Yeah. No, it was they got twice in a row.
Two back to back.
Marcus Williams, Ravens legend. But yeah, so their secondary, I think he's going to be a lot better. He's going to be a lot more motivated. And the same thing with Tunsil, you know, and like what you were saying with that, and he had what, I think they said 14 holding penalties. He was probably under the assumption that he was a one-man band, you know, for whatever reason, whether it was coaching, whether it was what. I mean, they got rid of their O-line coach, so clearly that might have been an issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They switched that up, got rid of their offensive coordinator. Clearly that might have been an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right. I think you're right. I think change of scenery for him is going to be good. And I think he's never been an elite run blocker. You know, but they don't need him to be because Jaden Daniels is just one of the best throwers of the football in the entire NFL.
Yeah.
You know, not named Burrow, Lamar, and Mahomes and Josh Allen.
Going back to Lattimore, like you said too, I think with change of scenery for him too, having a full off season, I think will be head and shoulders above where he was this past year too, because you know he played pretty solid for them down the stretch, and I think having him and what's his face second year,
Sanders still.
I think that'll be key for them too. So, like you said, I think with both of those players, all three of those players, change of scenery for Lattimore, Tunsil, and Debo, I think will be amazing for that team in general.
Definitely. And I mean, shit, I'm looking at their depth chart right now, and it's like you could upgrade the left corner. So it's Marsha. So it seems like Sammer. I mean, you could bump Sammer still out to outside. You know, it looked like he could hold up fine.
Yeah.
Or keep him in the slot where he was at, nickelback. Yeah. You know, like he was solid there, and then that's where they go late in the. There's a couple DBs in the back half of the, you know, or definitely. I mean, there's, like you said, there's just so much talent. There's just a lot of talent, and like, yeah, again, they don't need. And honestly, what Lattimore's, I mean, he's kind of like Legion of Boom level, you know, because Quinn calls the defense, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Or do they have a D coordinator?
I think they have a coordinator, but I think he's still kind of
on game day. He's calling. He's Andy reading it.
Right.
Like they're all collectively doing that. So, I mean, shit. He's 6 foot 200, buck buck 90, so he's got that. And I mean, who didn't love the uh RIP the Mike Evans, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So if you can dog Mike Evans, I think you would have been fine in the Legion of Boom.
yeah, he's got that.
Um, that dog in
He's
him,
got
as
that
the young
dog in him.
say.
But speaking of
um,
Legion of Boom, I think also the other team that I was very impressed with, very happy with, was Seattle.
yeah,
I think
100%.
I think it's kind of a back and forth thing because I think the trades that they made I think were huge because with Gino and DK they get a second and a third back this year, so that's huge for their
Yep.
draft. They've
Because
already
I think they were a little light on picks
they
prior to
were
those
yeah,
trades.
which I wasn't aware of until I actually looked at that when I saw that they got the second and third. 'Cause it's like, oh, that's cool. They're stacking some picks. It's just kind of making up for stuff.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, I really like what Seattle did. I think moving Gino now before he could or could not, you know, start the downturn. Who knows? Who knows? But like getting him out, getting Darnold in there um, with JSN and now Cup. I think that's a good combination. A lot of people are
One
saying
Scanling
that
too.
Cup kind of lost a few steps, but I don't necessarily think that's really kind of true. I think he's just kind of lost a lot of game focus in that offense because of Nakua being just such a boss in that offense that it kind of took away from the fact that he was uh, such a possession guy more than anything.
Yeah.
Um, that it really took
And
away from his value on that team.
and no offense to Cup, but like Nakua's, like Nakua's. I mean, call me crazy. Puka Nakua is I'd say top 10 wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah,
You know
he
what I
absolutely
mean?
is. Yeah, you could easily argue he's top five.
That's yeah, outside the LSU boys. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then to add like MVS prior to the Cup signing, I'm like, dude, your receivers are Bobo, MVS, and and
yeah,
JSN. But like it's like we always talk about, right? You have you want to bump everyone kind of down. You know what I
right.
mean? So like with the wide receiver room, obviously JSN is going to be the number one option. Cooper Cup's going to be probably the number two,
Hmm.
and then Bobo and Scanlon can kind of fight for the rest of the scraps and whatnot. And I mean, I would like to see them like I would like to see them add a little bit on the offensive line, because
Yeah,
that was the biggest issue. And then obviously with Sam Darnold, but
right.
DJ Daniel Jeremiah, sorry, I don't know him personally. I don't know why I called him DJ. Daniel Jeremiah was making a good point where it's like we haven't seen the Geno contract in Vegas yet, but it's like Darnold's
Okay.
a lot younger. I think he's 27 or 28
He's
years old, and
27. Yeah,
Geno is like what? So I don't know. Like, is Geno Smith like? In my opinion, there's maybe 10 quarterbacks in the NFL that you wouldn't even consider moving on from
right,
if you could potentially upgrade there. I mean, shit, you could argue that there's like five,
right.
but um, yeah, but they did sign Josh Jones. It looks like from the Ravens, which he never really
Hmm.
had to play, but he might be able to fit in there. And from my understanding, he was kind of like a swing guy. He was kind of the Ravens swing guy once Makari moved to the left. But
Yeah,
yeah, wholeheartedly agree. I mean, shit. And David Andrews is still there,
yeah.
on free agency. There's a lot of Bradbury. Get Bradbury and Darnold back together.
Bradbury
You know
gets
what I
signed
mean?
already.
Oh no, where'd he go?
Patriots.
Why
Yeah, I don't know.
is that no slight to Bradbury, but is that not a downgrade from David Andrews? And then also Andrews is like legendary Pat.
Yeah,
You're in New England. What are the mass holes saying?
the last thing I had heard was it's kind of injury related too,
Uh,
which I wasn't aware of. Um, But yeah, so I don't really have the full story on why they moved on from Andrews. I think it was just one of those things that they just decided to do, and then as soon as Bradbury was released, they snatched him up in a hurry.
Yeah. Um,
Which is a good move by
Another
them.
thing,
That is a good
of
move
course.
to get somebody that has starting experience to plug in there with a second year quarterback. Um, but yeah, that would have been
Yeah, because Brett.
you're right though. That definitely would have been good to keep him with Darnold.
I mean, maybe they had some chemistry last year. One person we completely forgot to mention, who is, in my opinion, going to be probably more impactful. And I'm obviously quarterback's the most important position in the NFL, all this type of stuff, but probably more impactful than all of that is D Law.
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Because I mean, Mike Mack made Mike McDonald. Sorry for again Ravens fan. He was the D coordinator, all that type of stuff. He made he I mean he revived Clowney and Kyle Van Noy's career.
Right.
You know what I mean? Made them both. I mean, I think Clowney, if I'm not mistaken, his last year in Baltimore, or his only year in Baltimore, was the most sacks he's ever had in his career.
Oh, okay.
I'll double check that, but like, I mean, what? How do you feel? You guys had to play him twice a year.
Yeah,
He
I
is a
mean,
Giants fan as well,
I had
people.
him.
If you don't
That
remember,
was one of my bullet points. So I definitely agree with that. Marcus Lawrence going there. Obviously, it's a huge addition to that defensive line. And not to keep overusing this term, but a nice change of scenery, getting his ass out of Dallas. You know, it probably can't hurt, especially with the back and forth with him and Parsons. When he left,
that was
obviously,
that was
um,
spicy.
yeah, spicy to say the least. So obviously, that'll be a nice change. Just going from kind of a disaster of an organization. Um,
That's being
also,
kind.
just the fact that it's a completely new coaching staff too. So
Yeah,
it's not like you're going from the Cowboys and they still have McCarthy and all the other coordinators. It's going to be a
yeah,
whole new stack of coaches. So I mean,
100%.
I don't see it as like, oh, he's abandoning ship, blah blah blah, whatever. It's like, well, I mean,
No,
maybe he saw the writing on the wall and didn't like the fit for whatever the new defense is going to be. So who knows? And I don't really see how anybody really has any confidence in the Schottenheimer hire either. So it's like I would have gotten out of there, go to a team like Seattle, who's been playing well for a long time now. They've had a good team for a while, and they've only gotten better since, like you said, McDonald took over. So
yeah,
I think it's just you can't really knock them outside of the fact that Parsons is just being petty, overreacting to the fact that
dude.
Lawrence
Like,
is
come on, man.
probably speaking the truth. It's probably
One, Jordan Lewis said the same shit.
right. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
and he just
he's like,
ignored
hey,
that.
yeah, like, yeah, of course, he just ignored that. Because it's, I don't know, man. Because I mean, when I'm looking at the roster right now, and it's like, so historically, I was also correct. Clowney 9.5 was the most he ever had in his career. Or no, I'm sorry, he had 9.5 in Houston his fourth year back in 2017. Um, but yeah, it's so Mike Mack. Why I'm mentioning this is because Mike McDonald can unlock, and he's a wizard. I mean, he pretty much is. Everyone with Ravens fans wanted him to stay and replace Harbaugh because everyone thinks that he's the next Bill Belichick, which you can kind of argue because he would shell coverage it like the disguises, and I mean, shit, he kept so essentially, he's bringing that. So now this is going to be the second year. You have all these guys. I mean, you have Leonard Williams, who is an absolute animal.
Yeah,
Now you add Demarcus Lawrence to that. Now you have. I
what a
mean, they
pair.
found their Mike in Ernest Jones, who you saw once he got traded there was phenomenal. I
Yep.
mean, Boye Mafe is solid. He's coming along. Jaron Reed on the interior, Cameron Young, or
Yep.
not on the interior, but you know, it's Cameron Young on
Yeah.
the interior. And then they have Byron Murphy too from. Is that Texas or Alabama, Byron? Let me double check. I'm pretty sure it's Texas. Yeah.
Texas, yeah,
So he was a fucking animal too, and he just had um, a couple injuries, and then you have Devin Wither, Devin Witherspoon, who's up
yeah,
there with the one of the top nickelbacks. You know what I mean? That's kind of
yeah,
not that. I mean, they're entirely different humans, but
yeah,
like Devin Witherspoon's that Kyle Hamilton chess piece because
yeah.
he loves to stick his nose in the run game, all that type of stuff. So I think their defense is going to be much, much, much better, and I think DeMarcus Lawrence is going to have a pretty good resurgence.
I
Because
agree.
it's yeah, and you mentioned the writings on the wall. I think the writings on the wall, the writing was on the wall last year when Dan Quinn left.
Yeah,
So like, because I mean, when you look at it, like look at how Washington fought for Dan Quinn.
right.
You know what I mean? And I'm
Yeah,
not saying that McCarthy isn't a good coach. Uh, I wouldn't say Hall of Famer, but he Super Bowl winning coach. You don't win a Super Bowl by not being a
right.
good coach.
Yeah,
Especially when you have, depending on how your view on him, like if you think he's whatever, Aaron Rodgers, ego guy, all this type of stuff. But like, you know, I just know he rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and
does he?
you're not going to win you can't win with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback if that is true,
Right.
and not be a good head coach. And everyone loves him. I've never heard anything bad about Mike McCarthy, but I think his message just got stale. And I think you're right.
Yeah,
The writing was on the wall, especially with it, because it's a fantastic point with what you just brought up. It's like, who knows? Like Schottenheimer, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
he's young, right? Like, I mean, it'd be
I mean,
awesome.
he's young coaching experience wise. I think I don't think he's really all that young age wise, but
Yeah, he's 51. But yeah, I mean, he's
yeah,
he's new-ish,
yeah,
not new-ish to
yeah.
coaching. Let me actually just before
Because I don't think he's ever actually ran. Like, 'cause I think he's an offensive coach, but I don't think he's actually ever ran. I don't
yeah,
think
I'm
he's
done.
actually ever been a coordinator of any kind, which is problematic.
uh, we're kind of talking out of our ass. He's been a coach since '97. But yes, you are right. Assistant for the Rams, assistants for the Chiefs, Syracuse wide receivers coach, USC Redskins they were the Redskins at the time. Don't cancel us. San Diego Chargers, Jets, Rams, Georgia offensive coordinator in 2015.
Hmm.
Colts quarterback coach, Seahawks offensive coordinator 2018 to 2020, which I don't know if that's good. I don't remember their offense being particularly good, and wasn't that the downfall of Russ
Yeah,
when they drop kicked
definitely
him out of the
was.
building?
Yep.
Jags passing game coordinator in 2021. Yikes.
Eek.
Cowboys coaching analyst 2022, and then offensive coordinator. So the first time he was an offensive coordinator since Seattle. No, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. He's been an offensive coordinator a handful of times, but I mean the Rams 2012 to 2014.
Yeah, I don't.
That's Jeff Fisher, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, probably.
Yikes. And then McVay. So yeah, I don't want to say he's going to be a bad head coach. I don't know the man. I'm not going to speak on his ability and all that type of stuff
I
because
want to say it.
he's the Giants fan, of course, wants
It has
every
nothing to do. It
opportunity
has
to
nothing to do with
shit on
that.
the fucking
I
Cowboys.
just look at him and I just say he just looks lost.
Yeah, I mean he's kind of over his skis, right? Like, I mean, and maybe we don't know behind the scenes. Maybe Mike McCarthy maybe that was the plan all along, and maybe
Yeah,
Jerry is some. I don't think this is true, but maybe Jerry is some wizard and reckoned. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. I think this
But
is gonna be. I think this is gonna be like Mayo all over again.
yeah, I think he
This is
might be
just like a
the
1 year thing. He's gonna take a big fall, and then Jerry's gonna bring in somebody else.
Jason Witten.
Yeah.
No, I did see that he wants to become a head coach, and I
Oh,
think I
okay.
think he wants to become a head coach for the Cowboys. But I don't think Witten's gonna be like, Jeff Saturday or
Yeah.
Gerard Mayo, like going from nothing to.
Let's hope not.
So it's just not fair, man. Like
No, it's not.
Chuck Pagano always talks about on Pat McAfee show about how like you don't know until you know, like you don't know until you know. So like
Right.
he was obviously the Ravens defense coordinator, and then he was hired to become the head coach of the Andrew Luck um, Colts,
Yep.
and he talked about it all the time, where he's just like, yeah, every problem falls on you, whether it's
Yep.
up top, down low, the belt loops aren't getting washed for whatever reason. All that is you to manage. So I hope he doesn't flame out, and I hope he's not just a scapegoat like the long list of scapegoats that have been Lovey Smith, all the boys. But it seems that way, and I mean, so with those are I think those are three teams that we've kind of like hammered home.
I'd say so.
Um, and yeah, I think they're going to be a lot better than they were the previous year.
Absolutely.
Um, not that I mean, obviously they were in the NFC Championship game, so Washington was kind of like a layup with that one. But
Right.
I just really liked what they did in free agency. They didn't rest
Yeah.
on their laurels, and then Seattle, obviously, with everything that they're doing. So I'm gonna change it up because we were just talking about an inept organization. Um, I, as a Ravens fan, I love the fact that the Bengals are bangling right now,
Yeah.
and I just with what we were saying earlier about the way the game's changing, I just don't see it. I don't see how like explosives aren't the way anymore. We're in 2025. We're not in 2020 when Pat Mahomes and when Pat Mahomes and or not, whatever I forget the exact year, but Pat Mahomes and Reek were going for.
Right.
I think they missed the window on that. People keep bringing up the
Yeah.
Colts back with uh back with Peyton, Reggie, and Edge and Marvin and stuff like that, but
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
the Colts had a good defense. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like they
Yeah.
had Bob Sanders, they had um not DeMarcus Ware. What am I saying? Um,
Dwight Freeney.
today's not Dwight Freeney, obviously the strip sack king, the king of
Yep.
literally the king of the strip sack with one of the nastiest spin moves you'll ever see, and then Robert Mathis as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just dogs. And then their offensive line was great. Like Jeff Saturday is a
Yeah.
Hall of Famer. What are we? You know, um, so I just don't see it, man. I don't see the vision. Their offensive line isn't
No.
very good. Cool, you can throw it to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins 50
Yeah.
times a game, but when you look at that, is that sustainable when you play a team like the Eagles or
Right.
the Ravens, who's in your division, who you have to play
Yeah.
twice a year,
Hmm.
right? Or anybody,
Yeah.
even the Chiefs. Look at the
Yeah.
last
The
couple teams that
Chiefs,
won.
the Broncos. There's you're not gonna really get away with all that with quality defenses all the time. And I don't care that you have an elite number one and then an above average number two, and you'll be able to take advantage of the fact that some of these teams don't have elite number two cornerbacks. Like that's not gonna work every play, every game. Like that's just not a feasible offensive strategy to win in the NFL. It's just not going to work when you don't have an offensive line
Yeah.
and you don't have a defense either. Like you said, it's like it's one thing to have a weak spot. You only have one strong suit, and that's it. Your passing game
Yeah.
is it.
Yeah. Because
So it's
even
like,
like Chase Brown's solid. Like I wouldn't
right,
mind him being RB2 or 3 on like my team, and I know you wouldn't mind
right.
having him as a rotation with Tracy, but like
But his
he's
efficiency
not a
is
game
awful
wrecker. Well,
because
it's
they
how I
don't
mean,
have a
how do
good
you run behind
offensive
that
line.
line?
That's my point though.
Yeah.
Like it's like yeah, he's a great running back, but what a waste. That's just like what we talked about in the off season. It's like like you'd mentioned, I'm a huge Giants fan. I loved Saquon Barkley, but what's the point? Joe Shane deserves to get dumped on because of the way he handled the situation. But what's the point
Of
in
course.
keeping that piece of an offense when you have the offensive line that you do, and you're not going to utilize him the way that you want to. Like that's why like I was okay with them letting him go. But that's really besides the point. But like you're not going to really utilize even like a second tier running back like Chase Brown because you don't have a good
100%.
offensive line. So it's like you're not going to be able to run the ball, and then on top of that, you're just going to get behind the 8 ball, and then you're going to have to abandon the run anyway because you're just going to have to throw the ball. And yeah, great, you've got the best wide receiver pairing in the league, which they do. Like I'm not denying
Yep.
that. They absolutely
Ah,
do.
100%.
But
Unquestionable.
it's not gonna mean anything because when does that amount to anything in this league?
Well, say the Eagles, say the Lions, say the
Right,
Ravens,
right,
say any of those teams get the ball with 5 minutes left and they're up and they're down 3 points or they're down
right,
2 points.
right.
Joe Burrow's not getting that ball back.
No,
It's going to be a 15 like.
yeah,
And then again, another thing to add on to what you were saying about their defense being awful. It's like as that happens, so okay, so you have Jamar Chase score quick, right? So quick slant, he's the slant king now. He's what Odell Beckham was for you guys for the
yeah,
keeping people up. Defensive coordinators take a 5 yard slant straight to the house.
yeah.
That defense went from, I mean, even if they get a 3 and out, the offense scores in 2 plays. That defense is going right back on the field,
Right,
and like you could have the 2000 Ravens, you could have the Steel Curtain, you could have the Purple People Eaters, name any elite defense. If you're on the field for a long time, like
yeah,
usually you wear down,
yeah.
right? Obviously, those are probably bad examples, but even good
Not usually, like
defenses.
you said, not usually. Like they do. They're human beings. They're going to
Oh,
wear down.
well, and it's like,
Even the
are they going to
best
wear
defenses
down
do.
week 5? Or
Right.
sure, maybe they'll be able to hang on, but like
Mm,
when it comes to this, like when you look at the time of possession and stuff like that, because that's where in my opinion, sorry if we already said it before, that's where the NFL's going. Time of possession, run
right.
game, good, solid
Yeah.
defense.
Control the
And then
clock.
you have teams like the Lions, the Ravens, the Eagles, um, Washington, who have both solid run games and can score in a hurry. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Well, I mean, obviously the Lions, the Ravens, and the Eagles have the top 3 run games in the NFL, but you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like that's where it seems to where everyone wants to go. I mean, that's what Pittsburgh wants to do. They want to
Yeah.
be able to run the ball 10,
Mhm.
and that's in your division. The Browns, especially with who knows going to be at their quarterback, that's what they want to do. I just like I appreciate them wanting to keep the core together and stuff like that, but it just to me it just seems like they're cutting their nose to spite their face.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, and then so sorry, I'll just say one more thing and then you can but they haven't been good at drafting.
No,
They
and
didn't replace
yeah,
Jesse Bates.
right,
They didn't replace, and now you have to replace Sam Hubbard, maybe Trey Hendrickson. You know what I mean? Sure, they
right.
brought in a couple guys and stuff. They never replaced DJ Reader,
Nope.
who you really saw that last year with their run defense.
Yeah.
Like Logan Wilson and um, Logan Wilson and their other linebacker. Let me just get his name real quick. Why am I forgetting his name?
Yeah, it's one of those things because like you'd said, it's like it's fantastic that you're paying your good players. Great.
Great,
Fantastic. Absolutely. You should
love
be
it.
paying your best players. Number 1, you took too long to do it. Number 2, you're not building a balanced roster. It doesn't matter if you're paying your best players, you're wasting your best players because you're not going to win a championship. Great.
Yeah,
You're excited because you've got Joe Burrow. He's not afraid of a challenge. You've got Jamar Chase, who thinks he's the best wide receiver in the league. Not saying he's not. I'm just saying he's confident in
he's an
himself,
argument.
and he
He
knows,
has an argument.
and he knows
Yeah.
he's what he is. He just won the Triple Crown. It's hard to argue it against it.
Yep.
But you're still completely ignoring the offensive line, which you've been doing for years. This isn't like
Years.
a
How many?
this isn't a this year thing. This isn't like a suddenly the offensive line fell apart.
How many
You know,
years are we going to have to watch Joe Burrow get decapitated
right,
week in, week out?
right. And like a couple of years ago, they did have a decent defense. You know, Lou Anarumo did have a decent defense. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was just like they lost the wrong pieces, like you said, because they lost Bates and some other guys. I don't know if it's because they lost the wrong pieces or if Anarumo just had a good run and then just whatever, or
Yeah.
if it's exactly what we're talking about and they're relying way too much on a defense that just couldn't continue to do what they were expected to do
Play style, pieces. I
with a
think it's a
game that
culmination of
doesn't
everything,
do that. Yeah. So
you know?
it's a lot of things, and the just hanging your hat on the fact that you've got the best quarterback and wide receiver duo combo. It's not enough to hang your hat on that. That's not going to get you anywhere in this league. It's just not.
But
It's not going to get you out of your conference, let alone win you a Super Bowl.
sorry, Jermaine Pratt, you're a dog. I forgot.
Oh
I don't know
yeah,
why your
yeah,
name escaped me. My bad. Logan
yeah.
Wilson, Jermaine Pratt.
Jermaine Pratt.
And
Yeah,
secondly, Ed, they'll just do what Howie did, because that's so easy to replicate. Just
yeah.
do what Howie
Right.
Roseman did.
Yeah. Just say
You
it
know
and
what I
it'll
mean?
happen. Speak it into
It's
existence.
perfect. Dax Hill will become the one of the exciting whites. Obviously, he's not white, but you know what I mean. Like
I mean, he
just
went to
joking around.
Michigan,
It's
so he
like
might as well be.
Ohio State fan for people who don't understand. Shots fired. Shots fired. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. I think it's play style. It's hard, man.
Yeah.
Like I am not acting like I've ever even sniffed close to the NFL. I played a little high school. I played a little bit
Right.
in college. And when I was in high school and we didn't have the best offense and we'd
Right.
have to keep getting 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out,
Yeah.
it wears on you, man. And that was
Yeah.
high school. I couldn't even imagine what those boys are dealing with in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck it. You could argue that's why Sam Hubbard retired. He's like, I don't know if I can handle this again for another year.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, and to your point, you literally just said it. The one time they went to the Super Bowl since fucking Boomer Esiason was their quarterback was literally on the back of a great kicker, McPherson, and a
Right.
good defense.
Yeah.
And then they said, nah, let's get. I mean, and the Eagles did it. They could have had these contracts for maybe not AJ Brown for Jamar Chase because AJ Brown was obviously a while back,
Right.
but T Higgins could be on Devonta Smith's deal,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
We
four
talked about that.
million.
It's like you could have been saving, 3-4 million a year to spend elsewhere.
Thank God they didn't have to pay 35 because that's what T
Yeah.
deserves. If he
Right.
hit the open
Yeah.
market, $35 million a year.
Yeah.
Thank God T's not greedy for them,
Yeah.
right? Like go get your bag, T. I'm stoked for you.
Right.
You're a fucking dog, and I'm bummed you're on the Bengals still.
Yeah.
Like would have loved to not have to see you twice a year.
Yeah.
Chase wasn't going anywhere.
They got to
But
thank Chase's agent for stepping in and taking him on last minute, because that's probably why they saved money on Higgins in the end anyway.
I just learned that too. I didn't realize they were both like, hey, it's a package deal. Like, fuck, dude. They just
Yeah, no,
bent.
that came together really last minute too, I guess. I guess Higgins fired his guy and jumped on that bandwagon pretty last minute. So
I mean, why not?
yeah,
Who's Jamar Chase's agent? It's not Mulligeta, is it?
I have no idea who it is. I just know they have the same agent. I know that for a fact.
Rocky. I don't think I've heard of him. Alliance Sports client. Not that it matters. I'm not saying I'm
Right.
the all knower of agents and stuff like that, but like
Yeah.
David Mulligeta, whoever. Like, there's tiers to the whole agent game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously he did great fucking work. Like,
Yeah.
he got both his guys over $100 million a year.
Yeah.
Or $100 million contracts. So good for him. And then fuck, dude, we didn't even talk about it. They might lose Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
And if they keep Trey Hendrickson, where's the rest of the money going?
Right. Then
'Cause
that's
again, like-
increasingly more difficult to build a balanced roster.
So what we were talking about, they don't have an offensive line that's serviceable, right? They have a bad
Right.
offensive line. Their defense is awful. They only have, let me see how many picks they have. Bengals draft picks 2025.
Yeah, it's one of those disaster situations because like you said, people bring up that thing where they're just like, the Eagles have the model to follow now, and it's just like, if it were that easy, we would have far more elite rosters in this league if it were just that easy to say draft
Just do what Howie did.
draft nothing but amazing players every draft for the last 5 years, and you'll go to the Super Bowl. that's not a model you can follow. Like he
It's
just
impossible, man.
happened to put that all together. No, I don't say happen as if like I'm not speaking down to that. He just
Of
happened to
course.
hit on all those picks because he was confident in his process. These other people need to be confident in their process because you can't follow the model that he has if you're not scouting the players correctly or evaluating free agents properly because it's not just drafting, it's drafting and free agents. You look at the fact that they drafted guys like Jalen Carter and they signed guys like Zach Bond on the fucking cheap and
Who's
said,
a defensive
hey,
player of the year candidate?
we're going to change positions. We're going to change your position and we're going to switch you from being the outside linebacker you've typically been to a prominently inside linebacker because we think you can do that. And yeah, that was a bold move on their part, and it paid off. But like, you have to make those decisions and get them right. It's not like Howie just like had a puzzle in front of him and put it together. Like that's not what they're going to be able to do. They're not just going to be able to look at the puzzle
It's
pieces upside down and suddenly be like, "Oh, there it is. It makes sense." That's not how this is going to work, especially the fact that
yeah.
yeah, there are some teams that turn around their teams in one draft. Like you look at Washington, you look at teams like that, Detroit, even that you brought up. But like, you can improve an offensive line in one draft. You can improve a defensive line in one draft. You can improve a secondary in one draft. You can't improve all three of those things in one fucking draft. They have
I
to do.
mean,
They have to do that.
100% to remain competitive. And I
Exactly.
finally, it took me a little bit longer. Forgive me, everybody. They have 6 picks in the NFL draft. You
Yeah.
know why Howie was able to? You know why Howie was able to? They have 10 to 11 picks
Yeah. They have.
every single
Yeah.
fucking
Exactly.
year.
Yeah.
Every single year they have
Hmm.
they have 10
Yeah.
picks, 8 to 10 picks, nine like. And I mean, I'm looking at the Bengals. They have 3 picks in the top 100.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think Howie has like 5 or some crazy shit like that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know,
And then
man.
next year they're
And
going to have
then
even more. I was looking at a thing with
and then
them.
you
I think
have
2026. I think they've got like 10 to 12 picks within the first like 3 rounds.
yes,
Like
yeah. I
in
think
just
that's
in
what
the first three
I'm.
rounds.
That's what I'm sorry. That's what I'm referencing. I'm talking on my ass there a little bit. That's what I was referencing that I saw. Yeah, literally in the first 3 rounds in 2020, and it's like, and then also too. So what you were talking about bringing Zach Bond over. What about Becton? Right? How many centers? How many people have the Bengals brought in? I mean, you have Alex Kappa, who like didn't work out there for whatever reason. Alex
Yeah.
Kappa was a
Right.
good player in Tampa for whatever reason, didn't work out there.
Yeah.
Like how many people do they have to bring in to try to fix? They've been trying to fix this offensive line since Joe Burrow's rookie year,
Right.
and they have not been able to do it because of scouting and like. And then to your point again, like, and I'll just end with this is like obviously unless you have some other stuff to say, but like you have 6 picks to fix your secondary. You have 6 picks to fix your offensive line, and I know they don't need all 5 places in the offensive line because
Right.
Orlando Brown Jr. is a good tackle,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I think they do have some pieces on the line, but like Burrow was still pressured more than anybody,
Yeah.
and then you have to fix your what I said secondary line, defensive line. Could
Defensive
you
line.
imagine
Yeah.
if they have to replace Hubbard and Hendrickson?
Yeah.
Miles Murphy, he was one of their draft picks from the last couple of years. He's not going to replace either of those guys.
No.
You know, he's a rotational
Yeah, he's a
player.
rotational guy.
So, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not
No.
shitting on Miles Murphy and all that type of stuff, but like
But they should have seen that coming.
Sam Hubbard, yeah. And then their replacement for Jesse Bates was Dax Hill, and like that didn't work out.
Hmm.
And then or Dax Hill, yeah, Dax Hill, like those didn't work out. And then
Yeah.
they signed Geno Stone, which loved him in Baltimore,
Right.
didn't work out there either,
Yeah.
And then Cam Taylor Britt takes a step back. It's like I don't see the forest through the trees with them.
No.
Um and it I just yeah, I mean we could talk about it all day.
Yeah. And they're not getting involved in free agency either. So it's like, what are you doing?
Well, because they can't. They
What
don't
are you
have any
doing?
money.
What are you doing?
Like they just gave all their. Daniel Jeremiah was saying he has a great analogy. It's like when you're a Grom and you have an allowance, and your parents are like, and you're like, I want a bike, right?
Yeah,
You have to save up for the bike. But no, I want a video game this week. And it's like, well, yeah, but that means you're not going to be able to get the bike. And it's
yeah,
like their bike was Jamar Chase is his analogy. It's Jamar
yeah,
Chase and T. Higgins. And then maybe Trey Hendrickson. But to your point, what are they going to give Trey? He's going to
yeah,
want at least $20 million a year.
yeah.
Where's the, you know? Is there anyone anything like obviously I'm a Ravens fan and I fucking hate the Bengals. I respect Joe Burrow. I love players on their team, but
Yeah.
Bengals fans just go up my ass sideways. Is there any other teams that you're kind of just like scratching your head on like what they're doing and maybe their stuff or
Yeah, I mean,
um
there's a couple. I don't want to waste too much time dumping on teams, but I mean, obviously, just a quick hit. The San Francisco is obviously an area of concern with such a
rebuild
mass exodus between
retool?
free agents leaving and some of their trades that they've made. That one's obviously up in the air. New
Yeah.
Orleans, I still don't understand what they're doing. Um, I know they're always in quote unquote cap jail. But
Take your medicine.
signing a guy like Chase Young to an extension when you shouldn't have even brought him in to begin with, I don't understand that one. Um,
Yeah.
and then the Bills, Josh Allen coming off the MVP year, don't think he really deserved it, but he did get it, so there's that.
Making
Um,
me making me blush,
he
Ed.
he gets the extension, which is great. I know you got to pay your best players once again,
Of
so
course.
fine. But what are we doing to support him? You
That
signed
was
you signed like, and granted, you and I both know I absolutely love Khalil Shakir. He's I was on him during the draft.
he
He's been one of my
he's a
favorite
Khalil.
players.
For everyone to know, we have the original Khalil Shakir truther. The
Yeah,
original, the OG. He was
I,
talking about him back in Boise State. This kid's going to be special. He's
I
going to be great. All that type of stuff,
I
and
love
he was right.
I love him, and he's an important piece of that offense. But he's not a number one wide receiver. They need
Mm-mm.
a number one wide receiver. Um, they gave it a
Josh
good
Palm.
college try with Amari Cooper, who's still out there. You could easily bring him back if that is
Yeah,
something you want to do. But um, just signing Shakir to an extension and hoping that him and Kincaid and Keon Coleman are going to be enough. Uh, I don't I don't see that. The offensive line still isn't a perfect situation. They could still improve
yeah.
that. And then, the defense still has weaknesses, and I don't think bringing in a guy like Joey Bosa really does anything to improve that defense. So I think a team that comes into the season every year as an odds-on favorite to make it to the Super Bowl, which I don't I don't back that any year, but they have that backing every
Facts are
year
facts.
because yeah, they,
Yeah,
they, they have
they're
that
top
backing every
five in
year.
Super Bowl odds.
Right. So it's like they should be doing more. They have the cap space to do more, and they're not. So,
What do you
uh,
What do you
so,
think they're
so
going
I'm
to do
really
with Cook?
curious. I don't know. That's the other one because it's like, should he really be getting a top of and I know it's all relative because it's just like the market's the market when the market is the market. It sounds like such a dumb thing to say, but I know, they if they're going to keep him, they kind of got to pay him big now, and then over time, with the way the cap changes and things like that, it'll probably be better off in the long run if they just pay him now. But I I, I don't think he's a guy I would trust to have the involvement that he's going to have, especially when you've got a guy like Josh Allen that's so key in the red zone that like you've got this guy that's really
Yeah.
only important from the 20 to 20. I don't know. It's it's
It's
one of those things
tough.
where like you should have a running back that's going to kind of take some of the weight off of Josh Allen's shoulders in the red zone.
Well, look at look at the Eagles, and then look at Lamar, right? So
Right,
you look at Jalen Hurts and you look at Lamar, and it's
right.
like give the ball to Henry, give the ball to Saquon.
So
Even
Saquon, yeah,
though obviously Jalen Hurts is an animal, just like Josh
right,
Allen, but I think that's where they're behind, right?
right,
Which obviously Derrick Henry's and Saquon Barkley's don't grow on trees, right? And it's no
yeah,
slight to James Cook, but you can even argue that it's Saquon, Derrick Henry, and then like everyone else.
right,
And it's no slight to everyone else.
right,
But like Derrick Henry had 1,900 yards this past year.
right,
Saquon had damn near broke the record.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then all purpose, he had what, 25 or some crazy shit?
yeah. I mean, he easily could have if they weren't as dominant as they were. He,
So is James Cook going to unlock Josh Allen how Saquon and
right,
Derrick Henry helped with, I don't want to say unlocked because Hurts
right.
is, as much shit as he gets, he's a great fucking quarterback.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And it's like you can't be. I don't know. I was like, you can't be a bad quarterback and win a Super Bowl. And then I just like had flashbacks to like Dilfer. Like there have been,
you
and
remembered
not
you
that
had
Dilfer was a bad
Dilfer on your,
quarterback.
yeah,
It was just him handing the ball off to
yeah.
Jamal Lewis and the most elite defense of all time. Um, no, but at the end of the day, he was an NFL. I'm not trying to shit on Dilfer because I respect him and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I completely
Because you
agree.
have to
Like,
say that.
no. Um, like Hoyt, like Bosa, yeah, it'll help their run game a little bit. Re-signing Rousseau was
If
was if he's healthy. Yeah,
if he's
that's
healthy.
a whole nother, which he hasn't been for the
No,
past
and
4 years or
that's a
whatever it is.
legitimate issue. Like some guys we abuse that with because they've had a issue or a couple of issues, and then you have to kind of just like hang that caveat on there. Like Joey Bosa legitimately really hasn't played a lot of football in the last what 3 4 years.
Yeah, and the scary part is a lot of it, if I'm not mistaken, is like soft tissue stuff. So it's
Yeah,
like stuff that you can't even really. I don't know. Like it's always a knee or like,
right.
oh, his back is hurting or like, oh no, his shoulder. And it's
Yep.
like, so yeah, health is paramount for him. Like Michael Hoyt like was great on the Rams, but at the end of the day, like look at what the Rams did. They got the ball ran
Right.
down their throats by Saquon Barkley, and they were like, sorry, Michael Hoyt, like 3 year, 24 million. The Rams had money for that. Like that's not crazy for a rotational edge.
Yep.
Rousseau's solid in the run. Laird Ogunjobi, Laird, Larry Ogunjobi's another like these are solid pickups, right? Like Bosa's solid, assuming he's healthy, and maybe it's an elite pickup and he's healthy for the first time in his entire career.
Yeah. Who
Like we were
knows?
talking, benefit of the doubt, like
Right.
Jim Harbaugh was the savior of the Charger. That motherfucker had to play for a Brandon Staley team for like 4 years. So like
Yeah.
we might want to give him give him the benefit of the doubt of always being injured.
Yeah.
Um,
Who knows? We could apply the argument we had with like Debo and Tunsil and all those guys. It,
that's
fresh
kind of what I was alluding to.
yeah, you're right. Fresh start could be the thing.
But yeah, I know I'm gonna sound like the biggest fucking homer in the world, but like that defense isn't the reason why the Bills won in the divisional round, and
Right.
I will die on that hill.
Hmm.
I mean, Derrick Henry was on rolling, all that type of stuff, and that shit's not gonna happen again, right? And I know everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, that's just how Lamar plays in the playoffs," and it's like, no, he's not gonna. They're gonna feed him, let him run the ball down the. I just, it's gonna be. And shit, if he didn't fumble the ball and he didn't throw the pick, like you could make an argument that the Ravens would have been up multiple scores because the Bills defense came out swinging the start.
Yep.
But and to your point, it's like I don't know. I just don't see any. Again, if Bosa's healthy, that's going to be a needle mover. But
Right.
like I don't know. Like they would have gotten like smacked by the Eagles if they made it
Yeah.
past the Chiefs.
Right.
Smack like Saquon would have had 500 yards.
Yeah. It still wouldn't have been enough. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like and then you don't bring anyone to like the interior. I think, and I love Oliver. He's a great player. Like
Right.
they have good players on that defensive line, but they're just light.
Yeah.
And Hoyt's light. You know what I mean? Bosa's like light-ish, right? Larry
Yeah.
Ogunjobi's not a monster guy, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken. Let me just double check his measurables. Yeah, he's 6'3", 305.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
he's on the yeah he's on the bottom side of the
he
interior
he
line.
could get he could get got by Tyler Linderbaum, no problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. They don't scare me at all, honestly. Um, just because, like Allen, obviously, like I said before, I think I started off the podcast saying top four. It's Allen or whatever. I'm not trying to start fights. Whatever. Obviously, I have
Right.
my opinion. Lamar's number one, best
Yeah.
quarterback in the NFL last year. But Allen, Burrow, Lamar, Mahomes. That's the standard right now.
Yeah.
Um, you'll always have an opportunity with Josh there, but like I don't know, dude. And hopefully they do pay fucking James Cook $20 million because
Maybe.
I just don't see him being worth that. Like he's more of the
No,
like
I
13
don't
to
see that
15
either.
range.
Yeah.
But um, but yeah, that wraps up our first episode back in I think about a year or so.
It's good to be back.
Like, comment, subscribe, absolutely. Please like, comment, subscribe. We will be doing this a lot more consistently. Next week, we'll have Ed is a draft savant. Again, shameless plug. He is the original Khalil Shakir truther, so he knows a thing or two. Next week, we're going to be doing a little bit more on prospects, maybe some best fits stuff, and all that
Definitely.
type of stuff. But
Looking
thank you
forward to
guys for
digging
listening.
deeper into that draft stuff.
I know. Me too, honestly, because there's a lot of, like you said earlier, there's a lot of good players.
Absolutely.
Um, but thanks again for everyone listening. It's always fun chatting with you, Ed, and see you guys next time.
See you next time.